So today, custom validation and comparing two attributes, two model attributes. How to do that? This is the first question. So what we need to do, we have to go for a Visual Studio. Sample binding.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Priti. So now what I'm planning to do, I'm going to create another controller for a better understanding. Okay, I'm going to say create a controller saying that product. I'm going to have a controller name called product. Now I got the action result with the index, right? Yeah. In this controller, I'm going to have two things. Product name, model. I'm going to create a new item, class name called product model. Product model. It's a basic class. In this class, public string product ID gets it. Public string product name. Public string from date to date. Public. Say this, I'm going to change it as date time. Now, this model, I'm going to take in the product controller in the index method. I'm going to use product. Now, I'm going to create a namespace, including the namespace. What is your namespace? Using sample model example dot models. Because this product model derived from this namespace. Done. I got the model. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a route which you need to give product. Right? Now build the project. Build succeeded. I'm running. Open a Postman. Hey, Brennan.
Hi, sir.
Now take the URL, go to Postman, add a collection, another collection, put a URL in this collection. Say collection name is product, right? In that, add a request, paste, say product, and put a breakpoint of the product. When you send, it will not accept it. See, everything is null. This product, everything is null. Are you getting from date to date anything? No, right? So this is not a valid request. So here what you need to do, instead of view, return content, product controller index method reached. Simple logic, I made it, right? Now build the solution. Product controller index method reached. Build the express. Send a key. It got hitted. Yeah, it got hitted. Run it. Now you see product controller index method reached. Sir, the request what I'm receiving the product control, everything will be a required attribute. So how to handle that? First, what you need to do, you need to make everything as nullable. Nullable string. This is the first criteria. Your first criteria is make everything as nullable. Then, after making null, you have to use required, which will derive from a namespace system.componentModel.data annotation. Here you have to say error message. What do you need to do? Come on. 0 is required. Right? Copy the same thing to everything. Now build the project. IAS Express. Send. It will not work. Everything is null. But again, this will not work because of the model state is valid. We need to implement. How to implement model state is valid? Anyone can tell me? Go to your student controller. You need to write this logic. You need to write the same logic here. What is the same logic? You have to write the logic here, saying that if model state is not valid, you are going to get the value, route all the errors, send as a bad request. Now you run the express. This we did on last week. Closing this, go back, send a request. You see here, well, it is false. It's getting the first value and it is taking the error. What is your error message? You see, to date is required. Like that, it will run everything. Now you see, I got all the exceptions. You got it or not? Hello? Priti, Chaitanya?
Yes, sir.
So now
Yes,
the
sir.
point here is, I want to pass from date and to date is mandate. So what you will do in the param object, go back, product model, first take the product ID, say 100. Copy, product name, class. From date, you have a from date, right? How you will do the from date? 2023-01-01. This is the value you are passing. And here, you have to use to date. Here, 2024-01-01. Now, if you send a request, you see, index controller reached. You got the reach? Say yes or no? Everybody. I got the all values I had reached. Now the point here is, what I want to do, I'll tell you. Sir, before that, first we need to have a override method. Override method to string. Here, I need to pass return product ID is comma product name is comma from date is and to. I'll do one thing plus and to date is. I concatenated. So here I'm going to pass product. Why it is not happening? Okay, I have to use dollar product ID. Here I have to use product name. Enter. Here I'm going to use from date. Here I have to use to and to date. Build in the product controller. you have to write product controller containing request is what is the object you have to pass? Product object. And you have to say here $. Now what happened? Build the request, done, run the express. Now go back. You see, entire expression I got. Product controller containing request is product ID, product name, product from date to date. Everything I got or not? Say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the point here is, I want to compare this attribute and this attribute with using custom validation. I want to compare these two attributes using custom validation. How to do that? Anyone can tell me? First, what do you need to do? How to do that? Anyone can tell me? What do you need to do? To make a custom validation, what do you need to do? First, you need to go and create a get compare validation. Under validation attribute, right click, add a class saying that date compare validation attribute. This is your first logic. Now this should be derived from validation attribute class. And right click, quick action. What happened? Copy this, paste here. Now, when you use this validation attribute, this will come to the data notation, under which you need to have public date compare validation is a null constructor. And then you have to use a override method valid to take the second one. To take this second one object where you got object and you got validation context. Now, if I put this here and go to project, not project, now build the project. Here in the date compare validation in the product model, there you say you can have date compare, right? Build the solution. Now click on the valid button, run it. You see, you will get a valid. You will get this validation result because I had used this as a validation attribute. I created a validation attribute which has been derived by the validation attribute class, which we discussed last class. Now send a request. You see the validation attribute is get invoked. Say yes or no. Now the object is containing the to date. The object is containing the to date. Now, how to convert that object into to date? Simply you write a logic bool. No. Simply say return validation result dot success. Time being, you use this validation result, and then here, if value not equal to null, value not equal to null. Once the value not equal to null, I can convert this object into date time. So what I will do, date time to underscore date equal to convert dot to date time. You say value dot to string. Now what will happen? This to date will be converted. Let's see. All these things you learned last class. Now you go, hit your request. Now what will happen? This request will receive a value. To say value is not null, it is converted. Now immediately you are converting that into date time. Now you see, you got the proper date time. You got it or not? After you receive that, you make that as validation success, and index method will be get executed. Now everything is fine. Sir, I want to compare this parameter to this parameter. But if I'm putting a validation of this parameter, I get the value of it. How can I get this value from this parameter? For that, I can show you one thing. If you go here, in the validation context, you can have list of properties. You see there is an object instance. Will you be able to see this object instance?
Yes, sir.
Validation context, you got all the values which defined as product date, product ID, from date to date. This is one value. And also it contains a type of object. What type of object it is returning? The type of object is product model. Got the point? You need to get a property of this object model. For that, you need to implement a concept called reflection. You cannot directly get the value. To get that value of that particular property, what you need to do, first you go here, public string object property name. Object property name get set. Okay. And then this object property name you need to get from here. How to get that? Public date compare validation attribute. Here you have to get a string object property name. So that here in the product model, you have to tell that this particular from date need to be compared. Your property name is this. Your property name is from date. Sir, this to date should compared with this from date property. So what will happen? This object property name will be holded here. Now, based on this property name, in the validation context, I'm going to get the property name. For that, what I will need to do, I'm going to use a concept called reflection in two ways. Property info is a class which will derive from system.reflection. When I use a property info, go to definition, I can get the member function of the class. What are all the members you can add? You can get the method, you can get the set method dynamically at runtime. You cannot get the value directly. So for that, what you need to do, property info equal to validation context. Validation context. This is how you have to get. Here you have to use, instead of get type, object type. Okay. Everybody clear? And then you can make it as nullable. If it is null, it will happen. So what will happen, you will see. You will get that property which contain a value. Send. Now you see here, F11. Now you look this property info, you get the specific property. You get the name of the property. You got the name of the property?
Got it.
In that particular class. Because based on these validation, see, you see here, validation context dot object type. Enter. What happened? I got all the objects which related to that particular stuff. Then you have to use get property name. Get property of. You have to pass your property name. What is your property name? From date. You see, I got the property, custom attribute. Got it or not? What is my property name? I got the property type along with the property name. You see the property type also. It will give you date time. Property type of type is date time. So like that, with the reflection, you can get that value. Once you got that property, what you need to do, you need to get the value of the property. So how to get the value of the property? First, you need to make date time to underscore from underscore date. Date equal to convert the dot to date time of property info dot property info dot get value. I want to get a value of that property. So what is your object? Validation context dot object instance. From the object instance, please give me the value of the property. Now you say here, always become a nullable. Now this property info will give a value of this context. Now build this. Will succeed at run. This is the concept of reflection. This is the concept of reflection. Now go back, send a request. Now you see value is not equal, getting the to date, getting the property. This property will give you the from date. You got the from date? Say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Everybody. Nitin, Pranit,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Priti.
Yes, sir.
So this is how you have to get a value from the previous attribute. See, if you use directly, if you're directly passing the name of this attribute directly, it will consider and get a value through object. But if you are taking some other property other than the same, you have to collect the data by using reflection. So here I can say from date should be retrieved from reflection concept in C#, because from date cannot be retrieved directly, right? You cannot get the data directly from this from date. Once you get that from date and to date, it's very simple for you. What is that? If from underscore, your job is done, from underscore less than to date, then you will return new of validation result of, say, from date is less than to date. Clear, ma? Now build the project. Something is expected. What? Okay, end of the statement. Build. It auto save and get builded. Now after building, run the express. After building, run the express. Then go to your here, send a request. What will happen? You got the object value, got the property, not matched, it is returning a success. But here, the from date I'm going to give 2025. Send a request. F11. It will treat it as an error, saying that from date is less than to date. Got it? Clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the point here is you need to compare these two dates dynamically. How are we comparing this two dates? Simple logic is you create a date compare attribute as a class and direct that value of the property name, inject that property to the object property. In the validation, you are getting that object property with the help of context, because context is holding the class of product model. Or you got my point? Validation context is holding the entire properties like property ID, property name, from date, to date, every value will be holded here. All you need to do is you go here, get that property of info for a particular field. Once you get that property, get the value based on the context. Because this object, let me show you how the object index, what is the difference between object type and object instance. You know object type. Now I'm going to show you what is object instance at runtime. Now, if you pass send here, what will happen? It will come here. F11. I get that. Now, if you look into this object validation context, this validation context as an instance, as an object instance. Now, this instance, you pass the property name. What is your property name? What is the property name you are looking for? Tell me. What is the property name you are looking for? From date, right? So, no, go back. Here you say from date. Cannot apply. Okay. It should be a function. Sorry. It should be like this, not as a brace. I think some instance is not getting. I don't know why. Okay. Okay, fine. So this is the way I have to get the value. Now you see. Now got the value? A property info.getValue has a validation context of an instance saying that this property info is looking for a particular name. For that, what is the value by using system.reflection? Or you got my point. So this is how you have to implement validation context. Anything else you want to discuss? Now you understand?
Yes.
So the first point, to compare two attributes in a custom validation of model attribute. Two model attributes using compare two model attribute using custom validation. What is our first step? Step 1, to create a custom name, class name called. What is our class name? What is our class name? Come on. Get compare validation attribute. The second point is inherit base class called validation attribute. Validation attribute derived from system dot data dot system dot component dot data annotation. You are deriving by using. This is your second step. System dot data annotation. Third, fourth step, implement is valid override method, which is inherited by validation attribute class, right? In which the validation attribute, is valid method contain two parameters. One is object. Another one is, what is that? Validation context. Another one is validation context class object. Right? Now, fifth point, take the value directly from the object for a given property. Given property. Name is toDate. Sixth point, to retrieve property from same model object. To retrieve another property. All understand? Another property from the same model using reflection concept. Reflection concept in a validation context parameter. How to get that? This is how you have to get that. This is the code you have to get that. Seventh point, to get a property info object by passing property name as a value in the, to get a property info object. I got my point. To get the property info object by passing property name as a value in the validation context. Validation context. Am I right or wrong? Because validation context holding the entire product model object. Entire product model object. Entire product model object. Why? Because this context is entirely holding that entire product model object, which contains product ID, product name, from date, to date, everything. Got it? So that is the reason we are using get product ID. Now, eighth point, after getting the property info object, after getting property info object, we need to retrieve, we need to get value of the property. Value of the property from the validation context using object index method, object instance method. Right? You're going to get the object instance method. See, with the help of object instance, I'm going to get the value of this property info, because this object instance holding all the property values like product ID, product name, from date, to date. Or you got my point? And then what is your next step? Ninth step. Your ninth step is validate both from date and to date together. That's all, ma. Anybody have any questions?
No, sir.
So now you all understand how are you going to compare? The
Yes,
next
sir.
topic is, sir, I have product model here. In this product model, I'm going to get one more property called date time. Say, sir, I don't want to implement from date to date by using this one. I'm removing this. What will happen? Nothing will work. Build succeeded. But you can write a method by inheriting validation attribute. Validation. One second. This validation attribute, go to definition. This will, I can directly do the same validation within this validation or enumerable, something like that. MVC provider. Validation object. Now go to definition, implement interface, where you will get a enumerable validation result. Here you can directly validate like this: from date less than to date, and you can pass return new of validation result. You can write like this also: from date is less than to date. But it is throwing an exception. Why? Because you need to have yield. Because if you are passing anything as a enumerable, it is a collection. To make this collection, you have to go for yield. Now, here, this method will get automatically invoked. You see here, I am comparing two ways. I create a dynamic validation attribute I'm implementing, or in the same model, I can use validatable object. In that validated object, I can use a validate method. What this validate method will give you, this is your validation context. Now run this. Same logic will be in different way. You see, you're directly getting the value of from date to date. Run this. You got it? You got the value?
Got it, sir.
But sir, when to use custom validation attribute, when to use inherited validation attribute for the model class, validation object. There are two ways. The next step is there are two ways we can implement validation object. One is directly inherit the interface validatable object. Validatable object in the same model class, where you can get all properties directly, right? Because within the class you are accessing, within the same product model you are accessing. Now you see, outlining, collapse to definition. Now come down. You see, you are getting all the properties within a class. Am I right or wrong? You're getting all the properties within the class. But if you go for custom validation property, validation object, we need to get value of other properties dynamically using reflection concept. That's all, ma. That's all for today's class. Anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions? Nitin, Chaitanya, Ranit, Preeti?
No, sir. No,
I
sir.
think other two people are not yet joined.
No,
Probably they can go through the video. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Basically, these kind of validations people will do real time. Okay. Sometimes what happens, I can implement the same this date compare validation in 2-3 places. Where and all I can use this kind of logic. This from date to date I have, right? Now go here. I take this one, the product model. I'll put here, where is my to date? Okay, so here I can say date compare validation, which is required a property called from date. Assume I'm going to use the same value, same property in any one of the solution, like student model, right? In the student model object, I want to pass from date to date. I can go and implement here. The same logic, I'm just going to use this. That's all. What will happen? If you pass a student model as a value from your validation of student controller, this student controller will accept from and to, which indirectly calling this date compare validation attribute. That means 2-3 models or a 2-3 request objects, I want to implement this from date to date validation. I can use custom date compare validation attribute. I return a class with the help of validation attribute. With that validation attribute, I can implement the same data annotation in 2 or 3 modules. Or you got my point? So that is the purpose people are going for validation attributes. Any idea? Any doubt? You got immense knowledge on this? What is validation attribute? Got it or not?
Got it, sir.
Ranit, Preeti?
yes, I got it.
Okay. So tomorrow we are going to talk about views. We are done with all the validations and everything. Now we are going for a concept called views. This is more enough. And then to build any projects. Okay. So tomorrow onwards, we can go for views, different types of views, and how to write the razor view, everything. Okay. Thank you, guys. We'll connect on tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Good day.